Hi, this is Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor Gang for Friday of some month and some year. June 18th? It's Puppy Day, yes. Our puppy had puppies. All night long. So, let me just introduce the gang today. Starting to my right, Robert Scoble. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, I'm in your kitchen.
Lucky you. There's nothing in there, by the way.
Yeah, I noticed.
Okay. To his right, at least speaking electronically, is Sam Whitmore. Also politically, right, Sam?
I'm to the left of Che Guevara.
Okay. Coming from a place that I really don't know how to quantify, one of the leading lights in the identity space, Dick Hardt. Welcome, Dick.
Thanks. Thanks, Steve.
Let's get a little bit more audio from you.
Okay. Do you need me to adjust anything, or we're good?
Yeah, just talking would be helpful.
I am talking.
Okay, that's what I see is going on. And last but not least, from Cloudblog and from Salesforce, John Taschek. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. Long time.
Jen?
Definitely.
All right, so I had Dick come on because when I called him up to ask him to come on the show, I asked him what he was interested in talking about, and he said something about Facebook or something, which I didn't really care about that. But he also said something about the Nexus One. You want to repeat what you said?
Well, one of my friends was at Google was generous and gave me a Nexus One, and I've been trying to use it for the last few weeks, and it's just been a pretty horrible experience. I think coupling Nexus One with AT&T is I can't use the phone anymore.
And so what does that mean?
I'm going to get an iPhone. I ordered an iPhone right away when I could order an iPhone 4.
And how did you get an iPhone 4? How did you order it?
Actually, I ordered my wife one, and I'm going to go wait in line, I think. Walk by there and try to get one the day they come out. You've got an iPhone 4. Is that an iPhone 4?
No, Sam, what are you showing us?
This is a mere iPhone 3GS.
I see.
I'm a loser.
So you're sticking with it, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Are you getting an iPhone 4?
Me? No.
Yeah.
No, I just got this. I have to learn how to use this.
And Robert, what are you going to do?
I already ordered 3 iPhone 4s, so I have you all beat.
Well, we expect no less, Robert.
Well, you know, to use the new video conferencing feature, you need other people to have iPhones, so I have to have my wife and my kid with one.
Of course.
And we know that John Taschek from last week's show, that you're ensconced on a Droid and that you're not moving.
Hey, the Droid X is coming out, but no, I am getting an iPhone 4, but that's mostly because the company is going to pay for it. So it's it'll be another device I carry with me all the time, just like you.
Yeah, are you going to replace?
We can video chat together.
Are you going to replace the BlackBerry?
I am going to replace the BlackBerry. There's I can go weeks without a BlackBerry and have absolutely no problems, which I've done for the last 3 years.
Stephen Pickering in the chat room picked up on that everybody's bashing Android already. I'll stand up for Android. I was in the AT&T building in San Francisco today, which is where Twitter is located. And guess what you can't get inside the AT&T building? You can't get AT&T, which is hilarious. I was interviewing Plancast and some other companies over there.
Well, what can you get?
Well, you can get Verizon.
Yeah,
or you can
Verizon works everywhere.
You could get Sprint, which is why I'm going to get the new Droid 2.0 coming out at the end of the month as well. I need to have both. I'm downtown San Francisco all the time, and AT&T just is not reliable enough to use as a voice phone. But the new iPhone, when you see it, it's stunning. And for me, using the web and using Twitter is far more productive on the iPhone. So I've optimized. I'm going to get both. Unfortunately, for many people, they can't get two, so they have to sort of choose which system they're going to go with. But to me, the iPhone is more productive, and I'm going to do a show on this. There's lots of little things. For instance, editing text. If you click too long, it brings up a dialog box, and it might not seem that big a deal, but you keep hitting things like that, and it reduces your productivity. And the new screen is just stunning. When you see it, it's just, oh my God.
Sam?
You don't think these technologies are going to leapfrog each other for the next couple of years? You think the iPhone 4 is like it for right now, or you think Droid and all the manufacturers coming around with Droid or Android 2.2 and so on are going to catch up and kind of take it over from a technology standpoint? Or is Apple just going to maintain that level of superiority that the fanboys like?
I want to hear Sam's answer to that one.
You do? Well, I think that it's easy to get caught up in Silicon Valley. The screen is slightly brighter than the 3GS or whatever. The fact is, a lot of people are walking around with clamshell phones, and I think that the real battlefield is going to be people who are upgrading from regular old dopey phones to smartphones, and to see if we could poll them, or is there some window into that particular bottom of the iceberg that's going to start to become visible? I think that's going to be the story this year.
And on that aspect, Android is good enough, and that's why Android, I think, is going to end up with a lot of the market share. It feels a lot like Microsoft versus Apple back in 1994, right? Windows became good enough and took over 80-90% of the market. And Apple stayed for the high-end people, the graphic designers, and the people who really wanted the best of the best. And I think that's probably going to be how this plays out. Android is available on all sorts of different carriers. There's already some apps that are better on Android. Google Maps is way ahead on Android, for instance, and Google Voice is really cool. If you use voice, I think Android is a better way to go. Searching for people is better on Android, right? All I do is start hitting GIL, and all of a sudden Steve Gillmor's name pops up. And on Android, that's more productive. But I kept coming back to, it was faster to tweet and faster to edit, text, and faster to favorite things, faster to retweet things, and faster to read the web on the iPhone than it was on the Android. So that's why I'm splitting my world into two pieces.
Yeah, but just, in like 1 week, the swipe technology, or 2 weeks of swipe technology that's going to be on the Verizon phones.
Yeah.
And that swipe technology is very cool. I think it's going to be... it's going to make it more competitive anyway with the iPhone. And I agree, the iPhone's a better device than my first Moto Droid, the original one that Steve calls a brick, because it is as heavy as a brick, actually. But it's pretty useful.
It's a Russian device. Remember the 2000 and, what was it, 2010, the sequel to 2001?
Yeah,
and it was a joint Russian-U.S. space station or something like that.
That was a blockbuster, Steve. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, well, the point would be that.
But I agree.
Like Android, it was outmoded before it was finished. That kind of Russian design. I don't know. What's the name of the cars that you can get in Russia?
Yugo, you mean?
Oh, the
actually, I've heard
of
the Trabant.
Exactly.
So the Android's like the Russian hardware. That's what we're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Don't you
I would agree with that. I feel like I'm running Linux when I'm running it. So I've also got a Evo 4G that I've been running, and they're both slow. The response time isn't nearly as tight as it was with the iPhone. I find I could easily do things I can't easily answer calls. It gets confused after restart it, and the battery life on both the Nexus 1 and the Evo is a lot lower.
It's on life support, that battery. No, there was John Gruber said something really interesting about this. I noticed a couple of minutes ago. He basically said that all this talk about these individual Android devices is a deception that conceals the fact that Android as an OS is crap, basically.
I don't know if it's the OS. I think they're tuning it up. I'm not running Frodo yet, and I think they're working hard on it. But
is it Frodo? I think that would be more appropriate.
Froyo. Certainly, when you see how Apple dealt with multitasking, it's more elegant and easier to figure out. Android feels geeky, and the first thing I did was load the advanced task killer, task switcher, so that I could kill all tasks that were running in the background and free up RAM and free up resources so that the phone ran properly. And when you do that, it runs great, right? My battery life went up for some reason. Other people are saying, "Oh no, the battery life shouldn't change if you kill all your tasks because it shouldn't be running in the background." Well, how is Pandora playing in the background if it's not running?
Well, we'll find out.
Setting up your Linux machine now.
Yeah, it feels geeky. It's this is Google's aesthetic. Everything Google does feels a little geeky. It's not pretty. Go to Google Buzz. It works. It has lots of features, but it's rudimentary. It's very Spartan, very geeky, right?
But your point on the Google Voice, I really like the Google Voice and the annotations. When you have that combined with using your own computer, it's a great setup that Apple is behind on that interface.
Yeah, I don't think they're behind on anything. I think that they're way ahead.
Oh, no, I think they're way behind you, because with Google you've got this combined, you get your voicemail into your mailbox, you can play them back, you can manage them like any other message, where with the iPhone all my voicemails are locked into my phone. I can't do anything else with them. There's no integrated messaging.
Well, the iPhone has that AT&T feature, which is that the call doesn't even get there, so
yeah,
you don't have to worry about that.
That's why you need the voicemail, because that's the only way you get your phone calls. It
doesn't get to voicemail either. If you live out on the coast like I do and like Robert does, the voicemails. I don't know about you, Robert, but there are a lot of voicemails I don't get until 20 minutes later or something.
I solved that problem, and I solved the Google Voice problem. If you call my phone, it says, "Please don't leave me a voicemail," and that solved both problems. I don't get any voicemail, and I don't need Google Voice to manage my voicemail. So there we go.
Okay, so.
So when my friends call me, I give away my Evo. So I know where to meet them. So
yeah, I give away my Evo this week. I partly because I don't want to pay for another carrier. I'm already on Verizon. I'm paying for Verizon and I'm paying for AT&T, and I didn't want to pay for Sprint too. At some point, my boss is going to start going, "Hey, knock it off." And two, I just couldn't deal with the battery life. We're arguing in the chat room about the battery life. Lewis Gray says he's getting 9 hours of battery out of his battery life. Yeah, he must not have used the phone, because on my Evo, I used it for a single call for an hour, and it ate 40% of the battery with no tasks open. I killed all the tasks before the call. And so, sorry, I need more than a few 3 hours worth of voice out of my phones. Now, the new iPhone says they're going to give you 10 hours of voice. That's a dramatic difference. Plus, I'm going to still get all the add-on batteries, so I can.
I didn't see 10 hours. I saw 7 hours.
Is it 7? Yeah. But my iPhone 3GS gets dramatically longer than the Evo. So, it's supposed to be longer than the 3GS. So.
Well, John Taschek, I wrote a post the other day on Cloudblog that talked about the video conferencing, the video chat aspects, and you in an email to me said that you thought it was kind of touching that I thought that was going to get any traction. In other words, you didn't think that video chat was going to get any traction. You want to stand by that publicly?
I like the way you put words in people's mouths, but what I said was that you were pretty optimistic about video chat, and yeah, I stand by it. I mean, I think that people like Robert and his kids, you know, are going to be doing video chat. I think you're going to be doing video chat here and there, but I just can't see it really going mainstream until it's not on Wi-Fi and it's on the network, the real network. And I just and it would be even more popular, of course, if there was some kind of IM type interface that combined the chat protocols from the video chat protocols. But Apple's never going to do that. That's why I think it's kind of a, you know, it's got a little spike and then it's going to go a little down and it's going to kind of creep up over time. But yeah, I don't think so. I don't think everyone's running out to buy an iPhone 4 because chat. It just came up now because you wrote a post on it.
It's totally the reason I'm buying the thing.
Most of the people are.
I mean, that's the
reason
I'm
buying it.
Absolutely. Why else would I? I mean, it's nice that this thing is going to have multitasking, but then the iOS 4 is going to give multitasking to the 3GS, and I've already got 3 of those. So, you know, what else is there that's interesting about the iPhone 4? I mean, it
looks cool. It looks cool. That's why I'm getting it.
Okay.
Fashion.
Look, I think there's an aesthetic to it. I think that it's the new operating system. It's also people are the way that they've grandfathered in some of the plans on the upgrade. But most of all, it's because it's the only interesting technology out there. But I don't know if it's
well, I agree with you there.
The video chat.
Oh, okay. So, Sam, what do you think about the video chat?
I'm not really excited about it one way or the other. It's been around a long time. Could I raise my hand and
no,
change,
you can't change the subject
until
after I get.
I really do want to.
You're going to try to, but I'm not letting you change the subject this time.
Your show.
No, it is my show, but I'm still not letting you change the subject.
Yeah, it's been around a long.
I just want to get the answer from everybody, and specifically, I want to point out that we are using a similar type of technology to do this show, which people said the same thing about when the iSight camera was launched by Apple. What was that, 8 years ago? You know?
Yeah.
This seems to be, there's a lot of people who are using video conferencing now on the network. So the idea that this isn't an important technology, I think, is proven wrong by what we're doing right now. So, Robert, do you care about the video chat?
Yeah, I do. I don't. My son usually doesn't live with me, so he lives 2 hours away from me, and video would be a big deal. Plus, I'm on the road a lot of times, and I want to see, my 2-year-old, and usually I'm on Wi-Fi, so usually it won't be a big deal. And
when
if it ever is,
see.
when I'm on the road, usually I'm on Wi-Fi, or I know where to find. I thought you were
in your car. I mean, I know the car drives itself, but
I'm using Wi-Fi in your kitchen, right? So here, yeah. It would work here.
Right, and I think that's a very good point. That the strategy of the major wireless vendors, particularly in light of AT&T's moves, and I read today that Verizon is going to go to a similar metering, rate limited strategy as well. The carriers need Wi-Fi penetration to explode, and that's part of their strategy right now, particularly as they move into emerging markets. So, Dick, you're the last one. You already told me that it looks cool, but what about the video chat?
I think the comment about it being limited to Wi-Fi is something that's going to hold it back a lot. Right now when I'm traveling, I'll go and video chat with my wife, and I'll continue to do that. But why would I need to use the iPhone when I can use I'll have my laptop. If I'm on Wi-Fi, I'm sitting there with my laptop. The advantage of the phone was sort of the mobile computing and that you could do all the stuff when you're just sitting around. And if I can't pull out the phone, if I have to try to find a Wi-Fi hotspot, and maybe if there is much more of a proliferation of Wi-Fi hotspots, so when I'm sitting in a restaurant I can pull up and do a video chat with somebody, then you can start to do it. But if you don't have the Wi-Fi, you can't use the feature, but I can use all the other features on the phone for mobile computing when I have 3G.
Well, I think that when you marry location services, which I think is about to happen, as Robert's been writing about recently, when you match location services with Wi-Fi penetration, people will start picking restaurants and coffee shops, etc., where they don't have to keep on logging on into Wi-Fi when they walk in. That basically the automatic services. Starbucks, I believe, is now going to automatic Wi-Fi as opposed to this ridiculous sign-on that they've been doing. So I think we're in the there's going to be a lot of pressure on the carriers to unbundle some form of step-down video chat, which switches as soon as you walk into. I mean, AT&T has something like 20,000 hotspots now around the country. All right, so the only other thing I would say about this before I give the floor back to Sam's interruption is the once we actually start playing with this thing, I think this is going to be a really significant technology. The idea that you can be in a work situation where you bring somebody in for a comment, say you're in a business meeting, to be able to, be able to have a 2 or 3 person thing where you've got an iPad which you're using for presentation, and then you bring in somebody for a quick consultation. In the business community, this is going to be a hugely powerful system for like selling, cross-selling, etc. So I think that we're underestimating this by looking at this in terms of adoption at the consumer level. This is going to be one of these enterprise technologies which gets grabbed quickly because of the adoption and the ubiquity of these devices. Sam?
Geolocation. You brushed on it. Robert wrote about 2 services that are beyond Gowalla and Foursquare, and I just read about it in my one of the media newsletters I subscribe to. Robert, can you tell me and the other folks about these 2 services you wrote about? They seem pretty interesting.
Yeah, one's called the Deal Map, and so you use it to tell it, where you are or where you want to look for a deal. Like I'm going to LA on vacation, so I put in Los Angeles, and I put in Laguna Niguel, which is where our hotel will be, and and then it just shows you deals on the map around you, and it can be something like a free hamburger at Burger King, like it was one of the things I saw. It can be other hotels, which I should have done earlier so that I could have seen deals at hotels. It could be events. It could be all sorts of different things that businesses are offering enticements for you to come in. Come in and we'll give you half off of a dinner, or buy one, get one free, or, buy $100 worth of stuff and get $20 for free, or something like that. There's a deal like that, and it's an aggregator, so it's not, you don't enter your deals into Deal Map, you enter your deals somewhere else, and it aggregates them all together and puts them on the map, and it's aggregating them in real time and trying to filter out ones that have expired and stuff like that. Now, I've seen a few complaints because people are trying it because of my post, and some people say, well, they found a thing that wasn't expired properly or didn't apply to their local area. And so it's a little messy, but, it's early. And but anyways, that's one of them. And then Gobi is one where, like, I'm in Pacifica right now, and if I wanted to go hiking this afternoon, I don't know where the hiking trails are here. So I just go there and I put my little pin down in Pacifica, or search on hiking Pacifica, and it shows me all the hiking trails. Or I'm using that to find all the fireworks down in Los Angeles, because I'm going to be down there on 4th of July. So I put in fireworks on 4th of July 2010 in Los Angeles, and it shows me everything it found on the web for watching fireworks. And both of those services actually have utility. Now, whether they work perfectly or not, we can argue about, but they add utility, where Foursquare you check in and you don't get a whole lot of utility yet. And what I'm hoping is Foursquare hooks up with these services, because they both have APIs, and starts building these kinds of information on top of Foursquare. So when I get to Los Angeles, I check in, and then I say, what's around me? What deals are around me? I need dinner. Who's going to entice me to come to their restaurant?
Yeah, I think that I moderated a panel this past week in San Francisco on geolocation, and Louis Gray was on the panel, by the way. Priya Ganapati was there. And the gist of what I took away as the moderator was that there's this obsession with Foursquare and Gowalla and check-ins, and the real value in this geolocation stuff is beyond that. And couponing, of course, as Robert mentioned, that's a big deal, but also just the general situational awareness of activities like hiking or parks or anything to do with any sort of passion.
I think Foursquare caught our attention because it's a game and because it got a lot of our friends on it. And okay, that's fine. But the promise of Foursquare is getting more of this kind of information into it. For instance, another service I'm playing with is called CardStar. And CardStar takes all of your loyalty programs like your Best Buy card or your Barnes & Noble card or your car wash card or all that stuff and puts it into an iPhone app. And it's pretty cool. But why, when I check in at Best Buy on Foursquare, why doesn't it say, hey, you should be using a loyalty program here? Why aren't you yet on the Best Buy loyalty program? We don't know about you yet. That's another area that could be added value to. And this morning I was at Plancast, who's doing calendaring. So I told Plancast I'm going to Le Web in December in Paris, but Plancast doesn't yet talk to Foursquare and tell it I'm coming to Le Web, and hey, show him some tips ahead of time so that he can know where to stay or know what neighborhood's best or know what, start planning out what tourist spots he wants to hit. Nothing talks with each other, right? And I talked with Plancast. I said, why aren't you making a deal with TripIt? Because okay, you tell everybody I'm going to Le Web, but TripIt's how the world's going to know what plane I'm on. Why don't those two work together and tell me who's on the plane that's also going to Le Web? That would be interesting information to know, right? But
have any of you guys heard of a site called checkinmania.com?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it yet.
It's a mashup that allows you, it's a mashup of Google Maps, and you can go to any location and see who has checked in across Gowalla, Foursquare, and Brightkite.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can just roll over. It's dynamic HTML, so let's say, it doesn't matter where, could be a bar, and you can click down on it and see the various check-ins across those three platforms, and you can also see individually who they are. And I think from a PR perspective, I think agencies someday are going to pitch the mayors and start to identify these people who show up the most, particularly at a consumer destination like a store, and look at them as influencers.
Don't you guys
that's
think
pretty
there's
cool.
going to be some privacy issues around all of this?
Hang on a sec. Could you repeat yourself, Dick?
I think there's going to be some privacy issues on this. We were recently at the Beach Blanket Babylon, and we checked in at the place, and then we saw there was this other guy checked in there. We could see his picture, and then we could stood up. We peeked around the theater, and we saw him. We found out he was there. I don't know whether he was there publicly, but I kind of worry as to where that's going to go, because the early adopters are fairly public about all their stuff, and is the use of these geolocation things really going to work out how everybody expects them going to work out? Is it just really the people that want to go and are narcissistic that are saying all the stuff about them, kind of like the early days of blogging? But is it really something that's going to be mainstream, or is it just going to be a small part of the population that uses this?
I think this is totally going to be mainstream, but not for narcissism. It's going to be mainstream because you're going to get paid to check in.
But I mean, the internet technologies that have stuck have always had a narcissistic underpinning. I mean, what's his name? David Sifry started Technorati to find out what people were saying about him. I mean,
that's a good point.
Yeah. So
and Google same thing.
Right. Why run away from the idea that Twitter? It took us a while. It certainly took me a longer time than it took you, Robert, to figure out what this would be good for. But once we started experimenting and loosening up about it, then all of a sudden it became this global, message bus, which far supplanted the narcissism that began it.
But my wife never got excited about GoWalla or Foursquare because it was, for her, it was only about telling people where you are, and that wasn't so interesting to her. But the deal map and the Gobi, those she saw utility, and she could see, oh, there's a reason now to check in or to tell the world where I am or where I'm going to be, because something comes back to her, right? And if you're getting paid, if you get a discount on a meal, or if you get enticements, if you get stuff like that, Gary Vaynerchuk said it at the Big Omaha conference, you will do stuff when you're getting free beer, right? And right now, the free beer you're getting on Foursquare isn't all that great. It will be a lot better in the future, and that's when the mainstream is really going to show up.
John, what do you see as the enterprise adoption of this?
Oh, there's clearly some of it was mentioned is the paying people as the influencers who are going to these stores or the rewards systems and finding out who's going.
That's
to
a
what
consumer,
locations.
But that's a consumer base audience. What I'm saying is, how's the enterprise take this and popularize it or use it for some ROI?
Oh, well, I mean, they're taking. I mean, even from the consumer level, they're taking the. I'm hearing an echo.
Could be, you're.
We're not hearing an echo from you, so
just go ahead
keep
and
talking.
try and work around it.
So, yeah, even on the consumer level, though, just the cross-sell or upsell or tracking the buyer is important. From an ROI on the enterprise, there's all sorts of geolocation type things that we want to have in applications in the enterprise. One is a particular sales rep or an influencer is at a place, a site, and to immediately converge on CIOs or buyers, just tracking out who can be where at what time, so that somebody else can broker that conversation that happens. There's an immediate ROI there.
Doesn't that impact on what Dick was saying about privacy? I mean, why are people going to put themselves out there? I mean, Robert's probably the only person I know who publishes his phone number galactically.
Because these people want information, and so they'll make themselves available, and they'll check in. So there'll be places that they're checking in, and they'll say, "I'm here. I want to see who else is here that I can talk to." And if they see somebody else from Salesforce.com or from another company, Rackspace or somebody there, they want to go and talk to them. If Robert's somewhere, they want to go and talk to him. I mean, it's just it has to be opt-in.
That already, it's interesting. I walk in at the Twitter building, I check in with Foursquare, and people literally meet me at the door, say, "Hey, I just saw you on Foursquare. I just wanted to come down and meet you or tell you about my company or whatnot." It's not just Twitter employees. There's a whole bunch of startups in that building. And that's enterprise, right? Salespeople are going to pick up on that really quickly, that if they check in, they get extra deals when they're in a location, or if they can get something else out of the location. If they can find out where to go for save some money. I mean, there's going to be some consumer crossover, but enterprises have used location stuff privately for a long time. I mean, I was at a pistachio factory that put an RFID tag on each shipment of pistachios, and they tracked it as it went around the world and went around the factory. And so, there's always been location things that an enterprise can do. It's just we're all trying to figure out what does Foursquare let us do now that's different, and how do we build a system into something like Salesforce. I mean, Salesforce Chatter was 2 years, 3 years, 4 years behind Facebook, right? So I would expect the real interesting enterprise uses of location to come out in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now.
Well, I would think that if that were true, that there are a lot of companies that would be in big trouble if it took them 4 years to get there. But
I agree.
What I'm trying to tease out here is something that goes back to why I think that Android, although it has obvious strengths, its main weakness, I think, is the ubiquity of the lack of ubiquity of any single device. And I think that Robert, when you talk about these location services, making deals and banding together, it's not clear to me that that's going to be as easy as you might think it is.
Oh, I didn't say it was easy. That's why I said it's location 2012, and we can argue whether it's going to be location 2013 or 2014. But it's going to happen. I mean, all the players are know it's.
Granted, it's going to happen. I guess what I'm trying to tease out here is lead to Dick commenting on the current status of identity and how you think that's impacting on these things. I mean, you were one of the original providers of identity services with Skip, and before that, whatever it used to be called before you changed the name several times. But one of the things that you ultimately had to do was to sort of move toward with IIW and some of the internet gang groups. You moved toward a position of accommodating or integrating your system with others to try and get some velocity. Do you see that happening in the location services now? And
yeah, well, I've read about a number of the people trying to go and get the same location being the same thing. So when you check into one place in Foursquare and you check into a Koala, that's the same place. How do you consolidate the places? And then I think picking up on what Robert was talking about on these deals, how do you standardize those deals? And so there's always a tension in industry between everyone getting together and agreeing on a standard and people wanting to innovate and differentiate their offering from the other people and adding features that are incompatible with what other people are trying to do. And ideally, these issues tend to be more social and political than technical. And so time will tell whether the geolocation industry have some leaders that emerge that have them come together and everyone sees that it's in their best interest to standardize a number of aspects as opposed to trying to differentiate on things that likely are infrastructure as opposed to features.
I think there's a business opportunity in a search engine that's geolocation tuned, so that, let's say I went to Technorati, I could pull up all of the blog posts and all that stuff, but also is there a geolocation component to the search result so that I can not only see what's been written about a certain individual, but I can also see where they went. That would be cool. And that could be either a feature onto a Google or a Bing, or it could be like what Blinks is to video. It could be a specific search engine. What do you think about that?
I think that's, as you've mentioned, that's actually a feature as opposed to a business opportunity, and that's a challenge all the time, is that if you can't create a business around it, it's harder for people to consolidate as opposed to it being a feature. I think it's a cool feature and something I'd like to have, but it's probably not a business in and of itself.
So who do you think are the businesses? Start with John. What do you think are the businesses that are going to get velocity in the location space? I mean, Robert has, I think, talked very effectively in recent weeks about who the leaders are and what some of these up-and-coming services are that I would see as features that are going to be integrated with who the leaders are. Is it going to be a Foursquare, or is it going to really be a Facebook, sort of a top-down approach?
Well, I think that the consumers are going to drive this for the networking aspect in the short term, and that's where the Facebooks and Foursquares come in. But I think there's a lot of startups that are coming out that are enterprise focused on geolocation that will be kind of folded in. I mean, their whole business model, it is a business model actually to have an exit strategy to get acquired by a company, and I think they're going into that looking to maybe have an exit strategy for getting acquired by, say, a Google or another company.
But isn't
I also
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm saying there's a lot of geolocation services that you can tell Google's building this in. I mean, they have the geotags inside the Android, so that it knows where I am at any time, and anytime I do a search, and where the search is coming from, Twitter has it. So if I'm doing something on Twitter, it knows where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
It's
but
just
that's
put
not where the
together into
money
an
is.
enterprise
Where the money is and where business is understanding when you become transactional. And let me explain what I mean by that. Right here on Gillmor's kitchen table, I'm not transactional. I'm not going to buy anything. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not telling the world I'm going to do anything. But the minute I told Plancast that I'm going to Paris to go to Le Web, I became transactional. I just told the world I'm going to spend somewhere around $5,000, between now and December on tickets to get there, on hotels, on restaurants. If I had to pay to go to the Le Web conference, that's another $500 to $1,500. I've told the world I've all of a sudden became transactional. Or I was talking to another guy who's building a e-commerce aggregator, right? My baby needs diapers every 3 weeks. So if I just bought diapers yesterday, I'm not very transactional. But 3 weeks from now, if I haven't yet bought diapers, I've become transactional. I've become willing to buy something, right? And systems that study and satisfy me when I'm in a transactional state are going to be huge businesses. Google was the first one that really took off, right? We told Google we want a digital camera. That told Google that we are transactional, and it put advertising next to us where we could click on it and buy a camera. Something around this is going to happen in location because when we are going places and when we stop at something, we tell the world that we're a little transactional. My boss used to tell me at the camera store, nobody walks in the front door without intending to buy. And Google, when you talk to executives, they know this, they understand this, and that's why they're trying to take these cameras into stores now to understand more about the intent you would have.
All right, now I'm going to give you a counter argument to this.
Okay.
Two things. First of all, when I wanted to get that iPhone 4,
yep.
I watched MG Siegler, try and go on the website, and he wrote about it almost immediately. I saw him talking about it on the back channel, and he was getting nowhere. So I tried that for about 30 seconds, and then I started moving around and looking for some information on FriendFeed that would tell me, okay, if this doesn't work, is there any other good way? And somebody immediately talked about this new App Store app, which had it's almost incredible. I mean, I think it's brilliant in its execution. The whole issue of why the website was breaking down was that the business process was going from Apple to AT&T to query them about whether you were eligible for the plan, so that you could then, and it was crashing on that interchange. In other words, a business process. Whereas on the App Store app on the iPhone, it knew whose phone it was. It knew, oh, this phone, it's got an account. It's eligible because we know what this phone is. In other words, the device was the the wand in the transaction. So it was like 4 clicks, and I was on the list. And I tried to do it about 10 minutes later. I did it for my wife, and then about 10 minutes after that, I started to do it just to see whether or not I could get back in. And they had shut that down, and there were like 600,000 votes within a few minutes. So the idea that just because you're sitting at a table, not in a store, I don't necessarily think that that's an accurate reflection of how these businesses are going to start to accelerate. And the other corollary point to this is, I went to a Barnes & Noble with my daughter yesterday. She wanted to get the latest Twilight trivia. She's probably spent $1,000 on trivia on Twilight in the past month. And, well, not 1,000, but it feels like it. And there was a book by, guess, the Beatles. It was about the Beatles, and it was about what happened to the Beatles after they broke up. And so I thumbed through it in the store, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And my daughter found what she wanted, so I had to leave. I got back to the house, picked up my iPad, went to iBooks, clicked, spent $12, and I had the book and started reading it instantaneously. What is going to happen to these bookstores? What is Barnes & Noble's business model? Yeah. I just haven't got a clue anymore. You know, if there's, you know, the only thing they can do is what the movie companies have done, which is, you know, create these windows, these artificial windows where you can't get that book until, you know, a certain amount of time has passed to try and protect the window of opportunity for the hardback. But, you know, paperbacks are gone.
What, weren't you accosted by the Nook guys in the front of the
I was.
store?
I looked at it. I looked at, you know, there was a Nook, which I'd never seen before. And there were like 53 different cases for it, which I, you know.
I'll bet they get liquor licenses. I mean, already you can have coffee. I'll bet they get liquor licenses, and out in California, come November, you'll be able to roll up a fatty and smoke one.
So, Steve,
where's Mark Cantor when we need him?
Yeah.
But, you know, Robert, I guess what I'm saying is that it's a combination of those two motives, if you will. And go ahead, Dick.
Well, I don't know how your point was counter to Robert's point. I completely agree with Robert that there's a lot more money when you're interacting with somebody when they're doing a transaction or they're demonstrating an intent. You know, someone's, you know, when I'm a pretty heavy Foursquare user. I go in, I check in. I've explicitly said that I'm checking in, and so it's easy for them to go and send me some, I can't even see that's reflecting. There you are, you're checking in. And you get the little special, yeah, and then you can go check it out. And, you know...
Yeah, I get that, but
because it's explicit, I've given them permission to give me an ad, where if I just walk in and I have an ad show up on my phone, I'm going to tell that thing to go away because I'm not wanting to do it. So I think some of the magic in Foursquare has been that you're explicitly doing it. Now,
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that if you look at the aggregate dollars that are going to be spent by people who are announcing 6 months in advance that they're going to Paris and who publish their phone on the internet versus a number of people who are sitting around and through the magic of these apps, basically, you know, bypassing completely the whole identity system, single sign-on, all of that, just using these devices as their, you know, key, unlock the door, and send the information about, you know, and what is Twitter and what are all these social networks except ways to be able to send information about what your interests are and what you're looking for. And find and relate to friends who are early warning systems for the same kind of thing. I don't know what Toys R Us has to do with this. Go ahead, Robert.
No, this is CardStar, so they have my loyalty program right there, right? And I scan it on the machine, and it knows I'm there, and this device knows I'm there, right?
Right. So it's the hybrid to me. I bet you that the dollars will flip from, you know, land-based, you know, meat space to cyberspace or app space to be more, you know, non-web friendly. That's going to happen very quickly.
You know, I think that's been happening. I mean, most things I buy recently, if I've been buying through Amazon as opposed to going into a store, it's just easier to go and order it, click on the things, I can shop whenever I want to, and it shows up for me. I don't have to haul it home. And any virtual good, you know, I've bought a number of books recently, and I'll be reading up, and someone will have a review of a book, and because I don't even have to go to Amazon to order it, I can go and pull out my iPad and click on it and get it sent to my iPad right away, or do that off my laptop.
So is the Kindle completely toast?
I haven't used my Kindle since I've got my iPad, unfortunately. As
Sam?
much as I like the Kindle, but you know, I'm buying them through Amazon still. I don't like buying it through Apple, so I'm sending things to my iPad that are through the Kindle app.
Well, I'm giving Sam an opportunity to be able to hold up his Kindle, which will be the first and only time he uses it this year.
No, that's actually not true. I sort of feel bad about leaving the Kindle behind. Not that I have yet, because I just got the iPad, but The Kindle is much lighter, and you can read with it with either hand in bed. I hope that it carries on. But we just met somebody last weekend. I said, hey, do you still use your Kindle? Oh, no, I gave it away. I got an iPad now. I really sort of hate to hear that.
You just haven't done it yet.
Actually, I spoke too soon, Steve, because I went out to go and sit in the sun to read the other day, and I brought my iPad along, and I pulled out the iPad, and to my dismay, you can't read it in daylight. And I'm like, darn, I should have brought my Kindle. I would have been able to read that.
There you go.
Well, that's just your Canadian, attempt to get skin cancer quicker.
I know.
Okay.
Hey, back to
this. If I can.
Back to the Barnes & Noble thing. I just looked up Brain Food as a URL, and brainfood.net is available. It's for sale. And I think they should just rebrand the whole chain, serve liquor, and go in there and be able to read and put a little buzz on and have some food and call it Brain Food.
Okay, well, I'm sure that all the phones are ringing now. Okay. What else do we want to talk about?
Can I just say hi to John Taschek?
I think it's important to call out why it's important that Android exists. I think it's really important that Google's driving that, even if they don't dominate the market. Because the platform's open, people can do a lot more innovative things, and it keeps innovation happening. Look at what happened to the web browser market when IE had a huge share. There wasn't a lot of innovation in the browser for quite a while. I'd hate to see that happen if Apple sort of owned a huge chunk of the phone market and didn't really feel they needed to innovate. So I think it's a great thing that Android exists and they're out there and that they've got a clear goal. And so competition's good. But as they see the release of iOS 4, they're going to be trying to beat that, and they're putting money behind it. A lot of other people put money. So I think it's a good thing. Their devices clearly need to go and advance some more than where they are now. But I think they're going in a good direction. I'm glad they exist because I can't say anything about what I was going to say.
I agree with you. I think there always needs to be a second, even if Android's second or if Apple is second, Steve. There's always got to be some kind of balance between the leader and the second that just spurs on the innovation, or else it kind of just goes away.
Yeah, but I think this is all great for Steve Jobs. What kind of a business is Google in? Providing monetization opportunities for Apple every 6 weeks. I don't get that. I agree with you. I think that without Google, Apple would have absolutely no leverage to be able to push the carriers around a little bit. The fact that they're able to do that now is entirely a result of the Android thing. But if you look at what Android's been able to do in terms of pushing the carriers around, it's exactly nothing.
Well, I'd like to see Apple push AT&T around and delivering better service. I can't believe how horrible it is down here. I remember I was living up in the Pacific Northwest, and it would be a little flaky when I was down here, but everyone would complain about it. And AT&T actually works quite well up in the Seattle area. And then I'm down here, and it's just horrible. We had to go and get a microcell, and I'm in downtown San Francisco in a tower. And the only way we could make calls was to set our phones on the window. Otherwise, we'd get cut off. My wife moved to start to make all of her calls on Skype because it was so unreliable to make phone calls.
The AT&T executives won't go on air with me about this, but they said that San Francisco limits them to 4-foot antennas, which serve 1/8 the capacity of the 6-foot antennas. And they said if all the iPhone users left AT&T and went to Verizon or to Sprint or even a combination of the two, they would totally take down those systems. They're not able to deal with the volumes of data. That's their point of view. What the truth is, God knows. It's a real problem. The first thing I'm going to do is when I get my iPhone is drive from San Francisco to Cupertino on a phone call and see how many times it drops and write a blog post about that.
Well, it's easy to say that AT&T is pathetic, but they're pathetic because they have the lion's share of the bandwidth that's being used for these technologies. If any of these other companies were pushed, at the usage levels that AT&T is, they'd probably be just as shitty.
Yeah, I don't buy into that. It worked well when I was up in Seattle, right? Like my phone worked amazingly well compared to here. Like it's pathetic here.
But everyone has Microsoft Windows smartphones up there, right?
Actually, you'd be amazed that the penetration of iPhones on the Microsoft campus, it's pretty much everybody. Well, all the cool kids anyway. So all 5.
Clearly, South by Southwest shows that AT&T can make a highly dense situation work properly, but they had to bring in trucks with these 6-foot antennas, and they peppered them all through town. They had huge new fiber lines brought into the town, and they wrote some new software for all those trucks. So they can do it. I just don't. I don't know why it's in San Francisco it's bad. But
you're missing the point that I'm trying to make here. If you look at the Mary Meeker's internet mobile internet report, the most recent one, June 7th, I believe, has a slide which shows the volume of usage for the iPhone. Yeah, that one. Too late. There you go. That one. Okay. The volume of usage for the iPhone relative to the number of devices in the marketplace, between that, it's iPhone first, Android second, and then everybody else. Nokia's got huge numbers of devices in the marketplace, but the actual usage of web data is trivial.
Yeah.
Whereas, the iPhone has relatively small numbers of devices and dominates the marketplace. So,
sure. But they can. It works in other areas where they have the same kind of density, right? And them saying,
but other areas don't have
the city of San Francisco won't go and
AT&T says they're able to put 6-foot antennas in most places in the world. They're not allowed in San Francisco. They say they are being kept from competing in San Francisco because of the city council and the laws against putting bigger antennas up. So, we don't want big antennas in our backyard. That's what the downside of this stuff. I mean, when I drove to Tahoe, there was antennas that were disguised as trees, right? You could see that their local regulations were different.
In San Francisco, there are politicians disguised as trees.
Well, in San Francisco now, you have to put radiation disclosures on the phones, right? There's a new law that they just shipped. The regulation in San Francisco is pretty different than in most other places in the world.
Right. Well,
but Robert, your drops are not in San Francisco. Your drops are, some of them are, but you're saying that you're dropping between San Francisco.
Most of my drops are in San Francisco.
But there's a whole dark spot in Half Moon Bay or something like that. I've heard you talk about it before. So,
but Sprint on Devil's Slide, Sprint, that's a tough place to get wireless to, and Sprint and Verizon usually drop there too. It's just and here's an interesting question, and one that I really wonder about with this iPhone 4. iPhone 4, they clearly put a lot of thinking into the design of those antennas on that phone. I have a feeling the iPhone's antenna system, the 3GS antenna, really sucks compared to the other phones on the market. So that's why I'm going to redo the tests with all these phones as I'm driving around and see how it works. But yeah, the other systems are better.
I think that
there's not much to say about that.
I think
but
the video chat
also don't have.
I think video chat's going to drive Wi-Fi, which is going to drive the amount of high value calls that are made over the video network. I think that's going to surprise a lot of people.
You think that the video is going to drive Wi-Fi? I think that the video is going to be gated by Wi-Fi. I don't think people are going to drive Wi-Fi deployments because they want a video chat.
I mean, when I go anywhere and do anything, I just want to get from one place to another so I can get from one Wi-Fi zone to another Wi-Fi zone. I mean, that's just the MO that we all use. Particularly with these rate caps, once you're not on an unlimited plan, you're going to start to become much more aware of this. It's going to drive usage, and it's going to drive AT&T to produce as much value. We're going to see, kind of a version of Intel Inside. We're going to see little AT&T Wi-Fi things showing up as advertising for shops and restaurants and all that kind of stuff.
I guess that's why they're doing the Starbucks for free now, right?
Absolutely. And that's a big deal, the Starbucks thing for free. I mean, McDonald's did this about 6 months ago, and I'm sure that it had a huge impact. Rather than spend $7 for a cup of coffee, you could spend 99 cents or whatever it is. What do you care if your pocket is being picked by the guy next to you if you're on your iPad? You're oblivious to that.
You don't think we've already had that drive for Wi-Fi as people had laptops and wanted Wi-Fi? I mean, I think I saw that story 6-7 years ago as lots of restaurants and little places would try to be more attractive by turning up Wi-Fi. I think that's... I don't know that the, video...
Do you think that there's going to be a presence indicator that's going to show up on the video chat network for iPhone 4s? I do. I think there's going to be just like on the iChat. There's going to be a little green light, which is going to indicate that somebody is within Wi-Fi range. So you go to a restaurant, the babysitter is freaking out because your kid has told her to take a hike or whatever it is that's happening, and she picks up the phone and she says, "I want you to tell this kid to listen to me." That's going to happen. Because she's going to be talking from you in the restaurant. No, it's not. But people are going to. This goes right back to your whole location scenario, which is, what is the enterprise reality of giving people permission to invade your space? If it's a high bandwidth, high value video connection, that's going to be much more responsible. People are going to start to see what the numbers are. In terms of upsells and in terms of transactions that come out of these kinds of relationships. People are going to we're going to give each other our video access in such a way that the software that's developed to support that is going to say, okay, you let that person know that I'm in range. You don't tell anybody else outside that group of selected people that we are telling them that we can interrupt each other. That's going to become a very high value economic force.
Well, I could see the iPhone 4 making cameras available to do the video chat, driving more video chat. So that's possible. I'd be interested to know the stats around how many computers ship with cameras now and how many people are video chatting.
No, it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't work between iPhone and computer. Haven't you heard computers dead anyway?
Just between computers. Like, how many people are using video chat on Skype versus just calling on Skype?
Overseas, a lot. Ever since the recession hit, the amount of travel that's been moved to this technology is, I don't know what. John, do you have any data on that? I mean, there's been a tremendous shift in terms of. I mean, God knows if Cisco can come out with a room. I remember the famous video that Robert did, with the teleconferencing situation. How much is that? $250,000 for that installation?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so what does that mean? Does that mean that it means that there's a lot of money that can be saved, in terms of travel and hotels, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm not sure the logic that Cisco rolled it out means that there's a market for it. But
no. It points out that there is a market at the high end for the business value of this, and that if you translate that into the small business environment, a lot of that is going over Skype. And in fact, there are plans to roll out multi-conference as a pay service on Skype. I don't know that it's going to be successful because I think Google will come in and smack them with a free service once they actually roll it out. But there's a lot of money that's being saved in that kind of context.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, look at all the private jets flying out of San Jose. Those each cost $5,000 to $15,000 an hour to operate. So if you have an executive like John Chambers who's flying around, and you save him a couple trips a month, you've paid for that $300,000 room pretty quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll take Dick's point, which is that just because Cisco has done this, it doesn't show that Cisco has a business model. It shows that there is a lot of delta between physical space and digital space.
Yeah, and I think if you're right, and I it seems to be logical that there's been more adoption of video conferencing since the recession, then that could go and get people tuned up that they want to be talking and having video. The problem with the video is the added value of being visual is the subtle cues. Like seeing something that kind of looks like somebody doesn't help. The cues that we pick up when we're in person are ones that are implicit, ones that we don't really consciously recognize.
Yeah.
And that we see somebody and we think, oh, maybe there's something else kind of in there. You're reading between the lines just besides what they're saying. And in order to pick up those signals, you need to have higher resolution, which is partly why Cisco made the investment of the high-res system that they had. Although I think
that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, your picture, for example, because you're on one of those systems which degrades the service to the lowest common denominator over time, you're getting very fuzzy, and then you come back into focus. I can still see your expression. Expressions are worth 1,000, pictures.
Oh, I agree. I'm not sure that the resolution is always good enough for
Yeah, I don't need to see Scoble. I've been seeing that picture for a long time. It's on his it's tattooed on his. But I think that we're uncovering, in spite of the reluctance to agree with me, we're uncovering massive agreement, which is that we don't know today what the uptake is of video conferencing. But when you're in a situation where you can start to, I think it's going to drive location services. I think it's a similar form of assent to a relationship. That people are going to say, yes, you can have my access to me over video. And people are going to, it's going to be used in business and in social situations as a way of providing a sort of social hierarchy which people value. And so I think it's going to drive a lot of relationships, which are going to drive a lot of transactions at a sort of executive level, and it's going to be a hugely big change. And I think that's fundamentally why everybody's buying these things tomorrow. But then,
as usual, you're ahead of your time, Steve.
Well, if I'm right, then I'm not ahead of my time. I'm on time.
Well, I think it's I think it'll be a killer feature when it's available over the carrier, or when, as you say, if 3G or if Wi-Fi becomes really broad. I mean, the problem with Wi-Fi is it doesn't roam, right? But being able to walk down the street and talk to somebody, that's much better than talking on the phone. Although
Dick,
on the phone.
Did you catch that 10% of the Apple developers were carrying a non-Apple phone in their pockets?
What's the point?
Because the point was, Steve Jobs says there's 500 and something devices here emitting Wi-Fi. In other words, there was 500 developers in that audience that had Wi-Fi's or Sprint EVO networks or stuff that was emitting Wi-Fi and screwing up his demos. So already 10% of us have the ability to use this FaceTime over a cell phone network anyway, and so how many people next year are going to buy these devices that let us use a cell phone network for data?
Totally. I mean that's I wrote that in the in this post the other day, that the Evo 4G, other than the fact that it's a brick, is a fantastic device for being able to do. If you've got one of those at each end, you can drive around, plug it into the lighter so that you don't have to worry about the battery, and then you've got a Wi-Fi hotspot on the move, and then you can do your video calls wherever you are. I mean, that's going to be a huge market. In fact, it's going to be so huge that Apple's going to be able to shove it down AT&T's throat and make them unbundle the services, which is what Jobs said when he rolled it out in the first place.
Well,
All right.
this might be a good time to announce that an anagram for AT&T Apple iPhone is palpitate phone.
Well,
Okay.
did you come up with that at your local hookah stand that you're building up?
And what was in the hookah?
Go to wordsmith.org. There's a little anagram generator. It's always good for a laugh.
Okay, well, I'd like to go around the table one more time before we wrap this one up, starting with John.
About the
About
FaceTime?
anything, just summarize whatever you want to say, because you got...
The summary. Well, I think this is that the mobile market is just going to drive so much innovation, and it's driving geolocation. It's going to drive chat. It's all coming together, and from an enterprise perspective, it's just going to give so much more. It's going to give so much more of this innovation into the enterprise, which really needs a new jolt at this time.
Because enterprise, application software traditionally sucks, right?
Traditionally.
Yeah.
Traditionally.
Oh, I'm being very careful here. Dick, go ahead.
Well, I'm pretty excited to go and get my iPhone 4. I'm happy to have the Android in the space and look forward to seeing what they roll out in the future. And I'm hopeful that sometime in the not-too-distant future there's enough interesting and exciting things happening in identity that you invite me back to talk about that.
Oh, well, as soon as you come up with something other than that Facebook Connect sucks, right? Have you clicked on any Facebook like buttons recently?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're hypocritical in your...
Oh, I think it's a great... I didn't say that Facebook Connect sucks. I was more concerned around the trajectory of the Facebook Connect relative to the open web and the threat that has on it.
All right, well, we will pick that up in the very near future. Sam?
Well, the first thing I want to do is just give a shout-out to John Taschek, because we didn't get a chance to say hi, and he was one of the best technology guys that PC Week and eWeek ever had, so hi to John. And
Thanks, Sam. Good to hear from you.
As far as the geolocation is concerned, I think the thing that Robert was trying to get across, and it's super important, is it's not where you are, it's the value that your location can bring to you. And if we could all keep that in mind, that would keep the narcissism down and the value up.
Robert?
We didn't even talk about the camera, and that's one thing I'm most looking forward to playing with on the iPhone.
Why? Because of the 8
because
how many megapixels?
There was a blog post up on TechMeme this morning about not how many megapixels, but the kind of sensor they use, the kind of lens they use, and the kind of processing they're doing on the images. And the images that I saw on stage at the WWDC were stunning from a 5-megapixel camera. So I want to play with that and see how it compares to the other cameras on the market.
Yeah, my daughter has been, she has a group she's in called Peace Outs. And they've had a number of performances recently, and I've been shooting mostly with my flip phone because it's HD. But I find myself dropping back to the iPhone just because there's something about the combination of optics and software that is really interesting. And yeah, I think that's. And as a matter of fact, I think speaking of Cisco, boy, is the flip phone going to be toast.
Yeah,
I mean, it's everything that the iPhone has, minus any way of getting on the network.
Not only that, but did you see the video editing on the new iPhone?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. I mean, considering that this is a small device, and now we can do stuff that we thought we needed a laptop to do. And I think this is the lesson from Apple. This is the new computer. The thing that I'm using in front of me is going to be less and less and less likely to be interesting over the next few years.
Well, I think you're a little bit out ahead of us at this point on that one.
I didn't hear Steve Jobs say the word Macintosh one time on stage.
Well, that's true. And the only reason that I go to a Macintosh right now is to see which sites are non-compliant because they're still running Flash. All right. Well, I don't have anything to say. I think this has been an excellent show. I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess, without whom this show would not be back on the air. I want to thank the TriCaster and NewTek, inventors thereof. I've been working with NewTek's technology since the first time I ever actually used an Amiga back in the late 40s. And they continue to push the envelope and make this kind of thing really possible. And again, I would point out that this is a video conference setup that Steve Jobs is now reducing to, as Robert points out, a handheld device. And I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. This is Steve Gillmor, and this has been the Gillmor Gang. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Peace out.